Welcome back to the Marketing Guy. My name is Rachut Kapoor, and in today's podcast, the topic is something really revolutionary, something really game changing. And yes, it is also about AI because AI's impact has been so deep that no day really passes by talking about AI. So, why this podcast? This podcast is also going to talk about AI, but in terms that really changes. It's kind of a tectonic shift. So it made it for today's podcast, and it is about how ads that we see, listen, or hear are changing. Here's an example of that. Meta Ads is projected to surpass Google's global ad revenue this year, where Meta is projected to reach somewhere around $243 billion. Google is projected to reach $239 billion. So it's very close by. But what is happening, if you would have asked me 5 or 7 years back that Meta would ever be the number one and would surpass Google ever in ads, I would have really laughed at one corner of the room. Meta is not Google. Google has been the mecca, has been the destination that if you want traffic on your platforms, whether that's a website, whether you want people to see your ads when they go on Google to search, Google has been the objective really. In movies, in our conversations, Google it has been used in so many ways. So it would have been very hard to imagine that this day would have come where a social platform like Meta, because it has primarily a lot of social platforms, would surpass Google ever. And why this is happening? Hear me out. You have entered officially the AI mode. So by that, I mean is that if you look at the dependency of Google has always been dependent on search. It has primarily been search, right? Everything has developed on top of that. Whereas Meta, for instance, think about platforms like Instagram or Facebook. It is a social media platform, and all it depends on is how much time you spend scrolling. So if you don't like doom scrolling, well, that's a different factor. But for social platforms, it's a boon. They want you to spend as much time as possible on their platforms. So here's what happens when you're on Instagram as an instance. You're scrolling past a video and you zoomed in because you liked some content that you see on your screen. Let's say those were Nike Jordan shoes. You zoomed in on the Nike Jordans, and 30 or 40 seconds later, you see Nike Jordan advertisements. How does that happen? Because Meta, or the social platforms that it has, is dependent on the behavior. When you're scrolling, you feed in a lot of data, the algorithm gets to understand you, and that is where Meta's advantage plus AI is awesomely good. That is where Meta is taking an advantage, because Google's core product search is getting those revolutionary changes in the human behavior, that we don't go to Google search anymore. We don't type Nike Jordan shoes where the search results would be about 10 different blue links. We don't even click on them. We go to LLMs, right? We go to LLMs like ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, or Gemini, depending on whatever LLM you prefer. You type your question with a lot more specificity this time. Your intent is a lot more deeper this time. And you're talking to an LLM presents you the results, so you don't even click on any blue link, which was the behavior for the longest time I can think of, over 2 decades. So Google search is impacted because of that, and Meta is benefiting because of that situation as well. So things are changing. We are in the AI mode. And appreciate the time that gets saved when we are on these LLMs. But these have a huge impact on how brands and businesses advertise. It's not the same time anymore where you are focusing on search engine optimization or looking at Google Ads, how to have exact keyword matches in your Google AdWords platform, and so that you can be relevant for those. So that's changing, right? So we have officially entered the world of GEO. You may have heard about it. It's the Generative Engine Optimization. Now you want to target, as a brand, as a business, how to appear in search results when the LLMs recommend certain brands and products where the user is asking for something. So if the user is asking for instance, I have wide foot. Would a Nike Jordan 4, a size 10 be a good idea, or is it a narrow fit and maybe I have to upscale my size? So if the LLM gives you an answer, so if your recommended product or brand is not appearing in those search results, again, in this one, I've given a very specific example that I'm looking for a Nike Jordan. So definitely Nike Jordans would appear. But what about the options otherwise? Could it be Adidas? Could it be On? Could it be any other shoe which could be fitting this pain point of the user? If you want to appear in those recommendations, that is where GEO comes into the picture. So what I'm really saying is that it's official. The days have gone where you optimize for search engine optimization, where you look for search words, where you look for keywords, where you look for exact phrases, exact keyword matches. I wouldn't say that you should just keep it out of your marketing mix entirely or your strategy, but your performance marketing, the way you think about your brand as a strategy, your marketing strategy, you want to now prioritize for GEO because you can see that you yourself as a user go on these LLMs and ask them the questions. If you compare the scenario versus the older times, in marketing, you would write about 2,500 or 3,000 word article. You would write a blog, and content marketing would be about really how many blog posts can I come out with? How many specific content I can create that can cater to certain keywords. And a user would read that, would spend a good time trying to see whether this answers my question here. And taking the example that I have, which is about the wide feed. So I would be reading in those times. So LLMs also don't like that. Just as us as human beings, LLMs also don't really like this idea of long answers, long fluffy information. What GEO means is having specificity, having factual content, having content as nuanced as possible, having it in tables, having some authority behind. That really shifts the focus. How do you gain authority? You gain authority through PR, some news platforms talking about you as a brand, as a business, something credible that an individual of some high caliber talks about you. LLMs are looking for that authentic, that sort of an authority when it is recommending your content to the end user. That changes the game, right? So far PR and gaining authority was one of the points in your marketing mix, where the whole content strategy now shifts towards having specific, less cluttered content, having it in tables, having a structured content, using schema, which is having H1, H2, H3 as headers, and then thinking about whether you're actually addressing the pain point of your users. So to that point where I'm saying the wide feed example, your content strategy could actually be saying that fit is narrow. So if you have a wide feed, scale 0.5 size higher. So that's sort of specificity. Now, if you look at what OpenAI has done recently, OpenAI a few weeks back has come out with the OpenAI Ads Manager. On OpenAI Ads Manager, the strategy is very different. It clearly says that it focuses on the intent of the user. Compare it versus Google and Meta here. You are actually combining both onto one platform. So if you're a US business, you could be running ads on ChatGPT. It's expensive at the moment. The CPM, as I understand, is close to about $60, which is probably 2 to 3 times what it would cost you on Meta at this point of time, and maybe slightly cheaper if you're on Google. But so it's expensive. So currently it's targeted for B2B businesses, maybe big brands who have bigger budgets and they're trying to experiment. And OpenAI is also trying to experiment at this point, whether it's actually take away the user experience or it's going to keep users onto the platform. So currently it's only in the US, but if you get the opportunity to try it out, do try it out. Coming back to the example that I was giving, OpenAI Ads Manager specifically says that it focuses on the user's intent, focuses on what they are really asking. ChatGPT is looking for the behavior of the user, because there's so much about the user when they're asking, let's say on ChatGPT. The specificity would be of a user something like this. Can you recommend me Nike Jordan shoes or similar types which have wide foot specificity mentioned. What other products could I be looking at if not the Nike Jordans? If you're not sure about the sizes, could you recommend me the best options out there? My budget is about $100 to $200, so give it to me within this range. See which other platforms I could be looking out for when I'm going out for purchasing. Look at the amount of information in the sentence, which is not what would happen on Google. Google, you would normally go and you would just search for Nike Jordan 4 size 10, and then you would type another keyword saying wide feet, and then you would read articles or content and try to sort of crack this yourself as a user, as a buyer. But here ChatGPT is giving you the answer succinctly, saving you a lot of mental fatigue right in front of your screen. So that changes how you advertise. So the user experience, the way it is currently being put on ChatGPT, is that you go onto the platform, you type, your sponsored placements would come after the results that appear within the chat. You have the chat, and then followed by you would have a sponsored placement. So it doesn't take the user experience away. So far, that's what the thinking mental model is. Even the ad is very relevant. And they clearly say that you need to have a lot of scenarios and pain points of users in your mix of 10 keywords. So be as specific as possible about your scenarios, about the situations of the users, about your product, and have those on your product pages as well on your website. So what would appear as a sponsored ad would not just be that it's nonsense content. It's going to be very relevant content for the user, which is an added information on top of what ChatGPT would have anyways given. So that's a great opportunity to be a lot more succinct, and an opportunity to go very much deep with your prospect who's going to be a buyer of your product. Think like a user. How specific and structured with tables with frequently asked questions, which are the FAQs, you can be. Address those on your landing page or your website. Ensure that every touch point that you have about you as a brand or a business is saying the same thing. When someone is writing a review about you as a brand, then ensure that you answer those as well if that's possible. And then if you're creating any content outside of the website as well, so ensure that integratedness. As you keep focusing on that, your AI citations will improve. So now your KPI or your metric is not about pairing in search results. It's about how many times ChatGPT or LLMs recommend you as a brand, and are your efforts actually towards that? So there are two takeaways from today's podcast. Number one, change your thinking model. Have search as one of your specifics in your mix, but that should not be your focus. That should be your tertiary focus. Your primary focus should be about Generative Engine Optimization, which is GEO. And yes, focus on search as well. Don't leave that out, because that's still internet, that's still World Wide Web. Content is going to be across. So have that as well. But your primary thinking mental model should be, how should I appear in AI citations by LLMs? And I've recommended you that you should think in a schema way, in a structured way. The second point is really, really critical. How you can have a user sharing their information about themselves when they come to your landing page. So what I'm coming at is the first party data. That means that information that you have collected about your user directly about them on your channel, on your landing page, or any other way. Can you fetch that first party data, and your reliance is not on third party? You know that cookies are not there anymore. More or less, it's very difficult, and there are a lot of laws coming in place about privacy. So if you don't have that strategy where you can develop your own email list, your SMS list, you can't build CRM models because of that. And if you can't build CRM models, then you're missing out on a lot of touch points, such as lifecycle marketing, such as very targeted performance marketing for that matter. So have first party data as the second takeaway of this podcast today. If you don't have that in your strategy, do make sure you have that. I hope you enjoyed today's content. Until I see you next time, take very good care of yourself. I will see you very soon.